Thank you, and welcome back to the Patriots 300 Level Podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin. Welcome back for our 52nd episode this week, where we'll be recapping another Patriots loss to the Buffalo Bills, breaking down the Patriots' latest press release regarding Gerard Mayo and their offensive coordinator, which just came out a few hours ago, and discussing what went wrong with the season, as well as a preview of this upcoming weekend's Super Wild Card games. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pat's 300 Level Pod for up-to-the-minute updates and commentary on news of the day, as well as at our website at pats300levelpod.com. So, Kevin, Patriots, unsurprisingly to most people, lost to the Buffalo Bills last week of the season. To quote Sammy Levitt, now the 2022 season has come to an end. Sammy Levitt of the Padres Radio Network. So anyway, what were your overall thoughts about this brutal game and just the season in general?
First of all, going back to that same Levitt, is that the that clip that everyone's using on those 2022 reviews, or
Yes,
is that someone else?
Oh, he's the Mutt Manansky of Padres baseball. So he does the post-game show.
Well, Mutt doesn't do it anymore. So
yeah, former Mutt.
Yeah.
How Mutt used to do the post-game show for WEI. It's Sammy Levitt does that for the Padres, and he said that after the Padres NLCS lost to the Mets.
That's interesting. I was wondering where that came from, and I had no idea. It kind of sounded like Tom Brady a little bit. I thought his voice. All right. Anyway, on to the Bills, which is probably a little bit more depressing than the 2022 season. This is pretty much, I think, how we all saw it. Well, not really. This isn't how we all saw it happening. No one could have foreseen two kickoffs for touchdowns. The Patriots basically admitting we can't kick off to them, so let's just squib it, and then it ended up going out of bounds. They couldn't even do that right. I don't think any of us foresaw that. The score is actually very close to what I predicted. I had said, I think 38-17. So 23-35, very close. You take away those two touchdowns on special teams, it's 23-24, really 24-24, because they went for a 2-pointer and missed it. This was actually it's kind of two different things. If you look at the score, you would say it's a really close game. But I think just the Josh Allen factor really kind of takes in when he needed to make a play at the end. He did and beat you. And I'm still, I had said before, I think last year during the Chiefs game, that I'm refusing to call him an elite quarterback till I see him win the playoffs. I think I kind of egg on my face after this whole season, and kind of just watching him where, I think he's elite, and he possesses traits that you would wish any of your quarterback would have. So he just kind of tore you up too when he needed to, not like he did the whole time. I think the Patriots, we'll get into this a little bit shortly. I think they actually had a really good game plan going into this on offense and defense, except for the first drive on offense. You kind of wish you saw a lot more of this throughout the season with the better quarterbacks. They play a little bit more aggressive. And I think that's what they really need to start doing. And possibly, maybe with this press release, we don't really know what's going to happen, but maybe we'll see that happen. What are your thoughts?
So I think this game, like I've said of several games this year, the Bengals game, the Raiders game, it pretty much is the perfect. It's the Patriots season in a single game, where they play really well, but it's just uncharacteristic mistakes that we're just not used to. And for instance, the defense played really well. Towards the end, Josh Allen just made some incredible throws, incredible plays where they got TDs. But you take away those two kick returns for touchdowns, like you said, it's pretty much a ball game. I thought this was the best the Patriots played all season, but those two kickoff returns for touchdowns killed them. So it's just uncharacteristic issues. The offense played a lot better, especially the first three quarters, but I don't know. It was encouraging to see them play that well when we haven't seen them play that well versus the Bills and outside of the win game last year, because of instances we haven't seen them play that well against the Buffalo Bills since the first Cam Newton game versus them when he fumbled away the game at the end. So it's at least encouraging to see that. they had a better approach, and it at least makes me a little optimistic that next year maybe the gap won't be that far if Patriots get a new offensive coordinator, new special teams coordinator, and then they put in some pieces here and there. So I guess that was the encouraging takeaway, but it was just if you won that game, which you had a chance of winning, you'd be in the playoffs. Probably you'd get your ass kicked this week, but you'd at least be in it.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing too, where maybe the silver lining is there's a couple things. One, by losing that game, you kind of get a head start on the coaching search for offensive coordinator, trying to get your plans in place, rather than an extra week delayed where you're going to be going back to the Bills again and getting your ass kicked.
Probably if they won, they would have been in Cincinnati.
Oh, it would have been Cincy? Oh, yeah. Then maybe it would have been a different story. But I think Cincinnati's kind of starting to go on a tear. I think that second half was more of an aberration than really what they are.
Yeah.
And I think actually Cincy is actually, I would say, more talented than the Bills are. So I think that's
on the offensive side. At least.
On the offensive side. So I'm actually what you had said, where their performance against the Bills kind of gives you hope for next year, but you also have to imagine I would imagine this is a less talented team than it was last year, the Bills, where really they only have Diggs right now on offense, where Dawson Knox is fine, Gabriel Davis is fine, but they don't really have that great like a secondary weapon to go to, and I think they're going to try and shore that up. They're going to try and shore the running game up more, where they start to use it towards the end of the season, and I think they're going to kind of go towards that more next year, especially with their rookie running back. They'll have a year underneath them and maybe sign someone, a bigger veteran or something like that. So it may get difficult. They may shore up their roster more, and it may get difficult that way. But the Patriots are also going to do it too. I would imagine they're going to go in with better corner play next year. I hope they're not going to be relying on Miles Bryant as much as they have. But you also don't know what's going to happen with Devin McCourty. So that's another kind of story to tell. And is Mills going to take that place, or is Mills going to be hurt every Bills game like he has been the last 2 years? So it'll be interesting. We're going to have a whole pod in the coming weeks next week, and we'll go over this later again to recap. But we're kind of planning on next week being a season recap. The week afterwards probably being a kind of a what to expect in the offseason, what their biggest needs are, that sort of thing. So we'll get into that more, just to touch on it just a little bit right now.
Yeah, don't want to harp on the point too much, but just one aspect of the Bills going forward is Josh Allen's contract cap hit starts to go into effect next year. So that might be another thing that might help the Patriots too, is his cap hit goes up significantly, taking up a bigger portion of their salary cap. Granted, the salary cap's going up too, but since the Patriots still have Mac Jones on his rookie deal the next 3 years, that's something that could help them at least and help narrow the gap too, with getting some pieces in them. Yeah,
very true. All right, going on, Mac and the offense. The offense looked a lot better, and we mentioned this before, a lot better than it had looked pretty much the whole season, other than really that Vikings game kind of looked the best. But it was actually very similar again to the Vikings, where you look at the first half and you look at the second half of offense, it's like they had two different play callers in the game. This is a few different stats I actually grabbed. I'm not really a big stats guy, but the play action attempts, and I think this was just kind of jarring, where we've been calling for him to go under center more this whole season, and not just us, everyone, people much smarter than us with football minds have said it. Even Darren Orlovsky, who I have a lot of gripes with lately, but some of his film breakdown is actually like good if you actually watch it. So, and he was saying how much more effective. You just even look at the stats. Mac Jones's quarterback rating is 20 points higher on play action and under center than it is on shotgun. And that was the whole season kind of. So
the one thing with that though is I feel that they were worried that the offensive line wouldn't be able to hold up enough if they were under center all the time, because of how bad the offensive line, especially the top position, has been. That is one reason why they might have had to play in shotgun.
But it's not really their strength though, too. The shotgun one. They don't have enough playmakers to actually make it work. So actually looking at the stats, Mac was 9 for 9 on play action attempts in this game. And I don't have the other stat. There's one I was trying to find, and I lost it because I didn't write it down before. But I think they only ran play action like 20, 30 times this whole season
Yeah.
before this game with Mac. So he was 9 for 9 in play action, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. The first touchdown drive, they ran play action on 4 straight plays, 2nd and 7, 3rd and 1, 1st and 10, 1st and 10, and then again later in the drive, 1st and 10 for a touchdown. Next touchdown drive, 1st down on the play action, 2nd and 2 play action. And then you go to the second half, shotgun spread again, shotgun runs, and they only ran play action twice. So they ran 9 total play actions, 7 in the first half, only 2 in the second half. So that was kind of really puzzling. And some of the play calling got very puzzling in the second half. And then just some of the executions just started falling off. You had plays kind of break down where the Hunter Henry interception, where that would just maybe a little he had maybe a half a second, not enough time to really make that throw, and Hunter Henry in half a second, not enough time to make a better reaction to that. And if they had an extra half a second of blocking, that would have been a touchdown probably. So kind of the sloppiness came around in the second half, and then you started to have players running into each other again, and 3 guys being in the same spot where that wasn't as much going on in the first half. So really kind of weird how that ended up happening. But I think Mac overall kind of really showed you in this game, and it really showed you the last few games where kind of put to bed those zappy people that were kind of remaining out there saying Mac isn't good, he can't do this. And again, he had 3 interceptions, but I don't think you could put any one of those interceptions totally on him. Where you look at the Aguilar play, the exact same play, the exact same throw, the exact same coverage was ran with Parker afterwards, and it was a touchdown. You had Aguilar stop in his route and then kind of flail his arms up trying to stop the interception, where he didn't get aggressive, he didn't try and attack the ball, and he didn't play again after that after that play. And that was probably his last snap ever with the Patriots, and good riddance. He was awful the last 2 years. And then you have the Hunter Henry one where he ends up tipping the ball up to be intercepted. It's a bad ball placement completely, where it's not like he was just throwing it to the guy. It was a tip pass, and it was kind of a coverage, not coverage, but a pressure situation. And then there was the one to Damian Harris where it was just tipped off his hand. So it wasn't like Mac had really bad interceptions where it was like, what the hell is he doing? Why is he throwing it there? So nothing really questionable there. I think he really kind of nutted up in this and kind of really showed you what his potential can start to be. And I really hope that whoever they choose for offensive coordinator, maybe Bill O'Brien, maybe someone else, we'll get to that later, can really help his development for his 3rd year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought this was one of Mac's better games. I know if you look at the numbers don't always tell you, especially if you follow people that just report the numbers, like Dov Kleinman or whatever the hell his name is, saying Patriots lost on the back of Mac Jones throwing 3 interceptions, which isn't the case. I thought this was one of his better games of the season. Not his best, but going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL and having that type of performance, which the offense hasn't had all year. So I thought he did good. It just also shows this offense needs better players, better skilled players in position, because you have some nice pieces, but you don't have any number 1, number 2 guys. I'd say Jacoby Myers is a number 2, but outside of him, you have players that are too inconsistent that will make mistakes. Aguilar, Hunter Henry at tight end will make. We've seen where he just doesn't turn around, or he makes plays that doesn't make the right decision and it turns into a negative play. Tyquan Thornton half the time doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Kendrick Bourne had a really good game, but 3/4 of the time he's on the field outside this game and the Cincinnati game, he just doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So that's one thing that hopefully having a good offensive coordinator next year, even if you have similar type players with Bourne and Tyquan Thornton, that they can learn their role and learn what they're doing so they don't make those mistakes. As what Matt Chatham said when he was on our preseason show, is one of the most important parts of an offensive coordinator is teaching. And it just shown that this year that aspect was missing along with the actual play calling too.
Yeah, I'm hoping that teaching aspect with a real offense coordinator and maybe some additional staff if they have it can really help Thornton and really Bourne kind of really take hold of the offense and Mac obviously.
Yeah.
But those are really the big three. We are Bourne, you saw a big kind of drop off, and there are a lot of reports that even last year he had to be coached really hard, Bourne. So and maybe he just wasn't getting that coaching. Maybe they thought the one they couldn't do that coaching, or number two, they're like, it's your second year, you got to figure it out, and maybe that's just not the right way to do it. And you have to put the time in, and maybe he just can't learn a certain way. And then Thornton looks like he actually regressed this whole season, where he started out looking really good and then just actually kind of looked worse and worse, but he was also getting put in more and more situations. So that's also going to happen with rookie. So it's not something where I'm willing to say, oh, he stinks, he's going to be awful. It's his rookie season. You're not really supposed to put too much on a rookie. You're not supposed to hope for too much. So they put maybe too much on his plate, but we'll see what happens next year. Anything else on the offense other than the offensive tackles? I think were horrible in this game. McDermott looks like he runs out of gas in the second half. He's actually starting to play a little bit better. And I think maybe that's why he was playing over Yanni Kajust, because Kajust has his issues too. But it looks like he just runs out of gas, and maybe it's just him not being in kind of full season shape yet.
Yeah, he was on practice squad with the Jets. He wasn't even playing when he was with the Jets, really. So
maybe they have something if they sign him again for next year. Maybe that Ted Karras sort of situation where he's there and somewhat dependable, but not like a starter guy. And then Trent Brown, again, this year has not been a good year for him. So we'll see what happens next year. All right, defense. I think they actually, again, we had talked about this before. They did a lot of different things in this game, and it's not like they attacked him in different ways. And I think we had said this on the pod last week, where one of the keys to the game was really getting after Josh Allen and attacking kind of the offense overall with the defense, where if you sit back in zone and just pray that you're not going to lose, that's not going to end up working with this team, because they're not going to make as many mistakes as he used to make before. And he's going to take the easy yardage and kind of really kill you that way. So they actually, I thought, did a really good job. They ran a whole bunch of different schemes all together. So it wasn't like they were putting just one thing out there. This is kind of similar how they would sometimes attack Peyton Manning, where they would do everything that they had. They would throw the kitchen sink at him. So that way he couldn't be expecting the same sort of coverage every single time. And I really like that. And they blitzed them a lot more and had pressure coming from different spots. And it wasn't like they're bringing the house every time, where maybe it wasn't like a technical blitz because they're rushing 4, but they would instead maybe have a corner or a safety end up rushing, and they'd send a lineman out in coverage. So really different, kind of interesting things that they did there. And I really like to see how they do that more next year, especially with more kind of seasoning with them. And just the other thing too is, I think if you have better secondary play, with again Marcus Jones having another year under his belt, hopefully Jack Jones is back. We'll get to that suspension maybe afterwards too, and then he'll be better. And then maybe you'll have a true number 1 corner that can go against them. So it'll be interesting to see next year. But that's all I had on the defense. What do you think?
No, I thought they played really well, especially considering how last year and even the year before, outside the wind game, the defense couldn't stop the Bills' offense. And then they did a really good job this game. Granted, Josh Allen made some Josh Allen throws where you just have to tip your cap, where it was just a great throw, even in good coverage. But for the most part, holding their offense to 24 points is pretty good. Not even 24. What is it?
24.
What was the final score?
It was 35.
Yeah.
Wait,
so
no,
21.
not 24. It was 21. Yeah. Oh, so they would have beat them then.
Yeah.
Oh, I did the math wrong when I was subtracting earlier.
Yeah.
21 points.
Surprise. But I thought they played a really good job, did a really good job. And you saw the pass rush again from up the middle, which I think is going to really help them, especially next year too, since we can only talk about next year really for their play going forward. But Barmore and Aquale having good pass rush, and considering Judon and Uche on the outside Granted, they weren't productive this game, but you're going to be able to have a lot of success next year if you get that pass rush from the inside, along with having really good pass rushers on the outside too.
Yeah, and I think to really add on that, even though Judon didn't have a sack in this game, he had a bunch of pressure that really helped. He ended up forcing an interception by creating pressure on Allen, and I think some of the pressure that he was getting allowed for the others to really get to him. So
yeah, definitely.
Even though he didn't have a technical sack, I think he actually played pretty well, and he was close to being on the 3-up for me, but a few others made it instead of him. All right, going on 3-up, 3-down. We had very similar ones. I'll go every other. So I had Barmore. He was a beast in this game. He's looking really, the last few games he's played, he's looking better and better each time, and he seems like he's going to be a 3-down defensive lineman and cause some problems in the line. So I know before we said that he was going to be a problem. I think he's going to be a bigger problem next year. I think he's starting to get to that point where we expected him to be. So after another full off season, hopefully he could stay healthy. But I think he's going to be really good for this team.
Yeah, and I think it's not a coincidence that he's been having as much success as he has with Uche since Uche has come along too. So they're not able to double team him as much as they did before, because last year you could double team him and you could double team Judon, but you didn't really have to worry about anyone else. Now with the season Wise was having with Uche the last 10 games, with Judon, that you can't double all those guys. And that's along the lines of why I was saying next year, getting that pressure up the middle from Barmore, Quale, and Wise with Uche and Judon on the outside is going to really, as long as they all stay healthy, that's going to be the anchor of this defense is their pass rush. So for me, my one up, I put both Barmore and Aquale, just because Aquale has had some really good games the past few games. So I just wanted to get, since they were both getting pressure from up the middle.
Yep, I think he's actually a free agent next year, Aquale, but I'd like to see him back. Hopefully they can maybe sign him for something low and not enough people notice them. Because I think he's one of those sneaky guys that they get on defense where they slowly come on. And
even last year, he didn't play a lot, but whenever he did play, he had a lot of success.
Yeah, agreed. Next one, Parker. I think he really found over the last 2 games how to really use Parker in this offense. Where they weren't doing a bunch of those 50-50 balls, like just jump up and get it. I think they really kind of found the niche for him where they have those slants, they have the curls, they even have the over the top balls where he'll try and kind of go for it, but not be a complete 50-50 jump like in the end zone corner thing. He's played really well near the end of the season, and I'm really kind of excited to see what he'll do next year. I just hope he stays healthy. That's his biggest thing, where he's never healthy. So but
this year you can't really blame him too much. Like you can't blame concussion on him for not staying healthy. But
no, agreed.
I had him as my number 2 up. Pretty much everything you said. He had another good game, and hoping that seeing how he fits into the offense next year with an actual offensive coordinator. But we'll have to also see what other wide receivers are on this team too.
Yep, sounds good. Next one, not Jason, Devin McCourty. I think he played a really good game, especially one where it could have been his last one for the Patriots. I hope it's not, if they can get him at a reasonable amount, because I still think, even though he's lost a step, I think that he knows enough about this defense and is a really good leader for this defense. And I would like to see him back again next year. But if he did go out, even though he didn't go out on a win, I think he came out with everything he had. He had the interception. He ended up having the fumble recovery where he kind of beat the other guy for the ball. It was originally in the Bills' hands and really kind of fought him for it. He was really good in this game, and I'll miss him if he's gone.
Yeah, he also had a pass deflection that passed both his brother and Ty Law for sole possession of 50th all time for most pass deflections, which I thought was interesting. Going into the last game, he had the same amount of pass deflections as his brother. But for me,
what ran with the interception total? Remember we had that question before?
He finished one short. If he held on to the one last week, he would have last week or the one versus the Bengals, whichever
the one he clearly dropped.
Yeah. I think it was last week. He would have tied Ty Law, and I forgot the other person that was tied for most in Patriot history.
Okay.
But for me, my third up was McCourty and Slater. Even though they don't play the same position at all, both they call themselves the old guys on the team. What could potentially be their last game and in the NFL and with the Patriots, they both made key plays that gave the Patriots a chance. McCourty having the interception, having the fumble recovery, and then Matthew Slater blocking his man to touch the ball for the Patriots to recover the punt, which was a horrendous punt again. But if it wasn't a horrendous punt, the Patriots wouldn't have had a chance to even get it to begin with. So McCourty and Slater, if that was their last game in the NFL and with the Patriots, they gave it their all, and they went out with at least one big play for each of them.
Yep. And then honorable mention for me, Bourne. I think he had another really good game, and I hope next year they just get some better coaching with him because I think he could be a big playmaker for this team.
Yeah, I hope he's on this team next year, and I'm hoping that he's coached accordingly because, like we saw last year, the second half of last year, and then we saw in 2 games this year, he can really be a playmaker on this team.
All right. 3 down. We have the exact same ones. I threw an extra one in there. Special teams, horrible. We already talked about this. I don't think there's really much to go on unless you have anything to
add. One thing about both kick returns that were for a touchdown. The first one was because of Pierre Strong making a mistake, which we've seen that several times this year where he's made huge mistakes on special teams, which part of it might be that in college he didn't have to play. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I'd have to check if he actually did play on kick and punt return and kickoff, but we've seen that several times from him. Maybe that's just not a spot where he can be, but also if he's not going to be a key contributor on the offense, is he really going to have a role on this team? But that's besides the point. And then he was taken off kickoff after he allowed that kick return for a touchdown. And the person that replaced him was Miles Bryant. Miles Bryant on the kick return for a touchdown completely missed on a tackle that was broken. And then the guy returned it for a touchdown because of that. So both spots. One thing I tried looking into, and I wasn't able to see if Brandon Schooler, who's one of the Patriots' best special teams players this year, he was out versus the Bills. I don't know if that spot, Pierre Strong and then Miles Bryant, if that was supposed to be Brandon Schooler's spot or not. So that's just one thing to consider. Whereas if it was, then if Brandon Schooler was in this game, Patriots might have had a realistic shot of winning. But
yep, that's a good point. Next one, offensive tackles. Both Trent Brown and McDermott weren't good in this game. Trent Brown, I don't know what they're going to do with him because he is back next year, but they would save, I think, $6.5 million if they cut him.
But still, $6.5 million isn't a lot for a tackle.
So
I think if what you have to do, my opinion, I'm not general manager, probably thank God for the Patriots. But if I was general manager coach, I'd wonder if there's options you think are as good or better for cheaper, or you move Trent Brown back to right tackle.
Yep. I was going to say, I'd maybe move him to right tackle, draft the guy, and then, or sign a guy or both, where depending on where you draft the guy.
I don't think I think the tackle market isn't that great this year from what I've read. So you probably have to overpay for a guy that's worse than him.
Yeah. I don't know too much. We'll get into this later. So we'll talk about the other one. So we'll mention, I won't even mention the name I'm going to mention. Next one. You have anything to add on offensive tackle?
Nah, the thing with McDermott is I can't put too much blame on him because he shouldn't be starting right tackle. He's shown that he can be a really good depth piece, which I wouldn't be shocked that the Patriots bring him back cheap next year. But he shouldn't be a starting tackle in the NFL, especially someone that wasn't practicing on this team or as a starter for this entire season. So even though he wasn't great, I can't put much fault on him because he shouldn't be in that position to begin with.
Yep. And then last one, I have Aguilar and Tyquan Thornton. Aguilar, again, he is in for one play, and it basically was one bad play and could have also cost them the game too. And then, not really, because they ended up getting the ball back afterwards. But anyway, that was a really bad play from him. He wasn't seen for the rest of the game. And Tyquan Thornton is just running around with the chicken with his head cut off. I have hope that he'll be better next year because you can't put too much on a rookie, and they put a lot on him at the end. But he wasn't too good in this game either.
Yep. No, I only had Aguilar, but I was thinking putting Taekwon as well. But we've just seen that from Aguilar pretty much once every other week. We'll see him make a huge, either a drop, a fumble, or just give up on a play.
Yeah. So I don't see him getting paid again by anyone. So we'll be interested to see what happens. All right. Moving on. I spent a lot of time on that stuff. Patriots press release we had mentioned at the top of this. A lot of you probably have already seen it already. Luckily, this happened right before the podcast, so we can actually throw this in. 7:24 tonight. We're taping this on the 12th, which is Thursday night. New England Patriots and head coach Bill Belichick have begun contract extension discussions with Gerard Mayo that would keep him with the team long term. In addition, the team will begin interviewing for offensive coordinator candidates beginning next week. First thought when I originally saw this was, why the hell did they initially release this if they haven't even signed Gerard Mayo? Because at first I read that they signed him, and I was like, they've begun contract extensions. But further reporting, Karen Garrigan, and I forget who else I read it from, said that they've got most of the contract hammered out already. There's just some fine details that they're going through, so it'll be interesting to see what those fine details are. It's probably nothing. The fine details aren't probably anything major if they were willing to put this out already. It'll be interesting, I think, to see what he comes back as. Is he going to be defensive coordinator? Is he going to be assistant head coach? Likely he's not going to be co-defensive coordinator because I forgot who reported it, but Bill had offered both him and Steve co-defensive coordinator last year, and Mayo turned it down, not wanting a co-defensive title. So be interesting to see what happens. He was rumored, not rumored, but a few teams had want to interview him for defensive coordinator positions. So it seems like this is to try and kind of stop.
And the Panthers reach out to him for head coach too.
Yeah. So I was going to say this sounds like really to try and stop him from leaving for anything other than a head coach position, where I think they would think it'd be a bad look if he leaves for a defensive coordinator position when it's almost basically doing the same thing he's doing here. Number two is kind of to try and stop like the brain drain that's been happening with the Patriots, where coaches have been leaving every year. So you want a really experienced, well-rounded coach. And then the other thing too, that you may not really think about, was that when McDaniels came back from when he never really left, but with the Colts situation, part of the reason why they wanted to bring him back too was, number one, they didn't want him to leave, and Kraft saw his kind of hesitancy with the position. But two, by paying him that much, they had kind of a coach in the waiting. God forbid Bill ever left abruptly or something, health reason or anything like that. They had someone that was waiting there that would be able to take over either for a little bit or someone inside. So that would be another situation with Mayo where you don't know what they promised them. They could have said you'd be in contention for being head coach after Bill leaves, but I don't think they would ever promise him that, because they didn't even promise Josh that. But
one thing with that though, sorry to cut in, but the difference with that is Patriots knew that Bill was going to be coaching for X amount because he wants to catch John Shula's record. So unless something happened health wise or something unpredictable, you knew Belichick was going to be coaching 7-8 more years. Now, since he's 71, he's only realistically 2 to 3 seasons away from breaking that. We don't know, but it is more likely that might be something you might be willing to discuss, or at least mention that even if it's not saying you'll be the head coach, you'll be in consideration.
So I think by having someone here that they know is a strong leader and someone that could actually take the reins if they needed to is another thing. So because they don't have really anyone on staff that's really experienced enough that can lead a room as much as he can. Because just thinking right now, who the hell on the staff would even be in positions?
Steve.
So it'd be.
I think from what I've heard, the players do like Steve a lot, and then he has his dad's knowledge,
everything,
yeah,
mannerism, talking.
Voice.
There was some video I was watching a couple days ago where I wasn't even looking, and it was like, and then I looked, I was like, oh my god, that's Steve. I thought that was Bill.
He sounds exactly like him.
Yeah, it's really weird. So any thoughts on the Mayo thing before we kind of dive into the offensive coordinator thing?
Yeah, I think when I read it at first, I was a little surprised. even without even just seeing that if you assumed he was signed, I was wondering why he would agree to a long-term contract extension when there were reports today that the Panthers reached out to him for a head coaching position.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know he interviewed with Denver last year, I believe. There was a couple other, I think he interviewed with someone the year before too. I could be mistaken. So he's gotten head coaching consideration. Granted, we don't know if it's to just satisfy the Rooney Rule or if he's a realistic candidate where they're actually really interested in him being a head coach. But so that's why I was a little surprised. So that's why my first thought went to, I wonder if that is something that the Patriots told him of either we're going to make you either have you be the head coach or you'll be a strong one of our top choices to be the head coach when Bill leaves. And since I just said Bill's probably leaving in 3-4 years, most likely it's not that far down the line.
Yeah.
So that was my initial thought. Granted, we probably won't know, but it also could be another thing where they're paying him a lot. He doesn't have to worry about going to a crappy situation just to be a head coach and then being gone. And then also, I wonder if Bill also told him the same thing that he supposedly told McDaniels of, I'm going to
show you my world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that. The other thing too, I don't think he's going to get the Panthers job anyway.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It seems like they're just interviewing him for the Rooney situation, where David Tepper is really he likes big names, big things. He's not very patient either. So I can't imagine him going for a defensive coordinator. Not even someone that's not even a defensive coordinator as the job, where everyone's going offense now. And Tepper especially really likes big names and splashes and wants something. He doesn't have that much patience. So I hardly doubt that that's going to happen.
I agree.
And then I don't think he's even gotten a call yet for the Denver situation, and where that wouldn't happen there either, because they're the same situation where they're willing to go big. And it's likely either
they paid $400,000 to redo the field for the last game of the season, even though they're out of playoff contention. They're going to pay for Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's either Harbaugh or Payton. They've got almost unlimited money. They've got Walmart money, so it's gonna be one of those big names. So, and he hasn't really been tied anywhere else. Next part, the offense corner situation. They're basically announcing what was one of the worst kept secrets, that they're going to be interviewing for an offensive coordinator starting next week, because everyone, I think, realized that I don't think Matt Patricia is coming back as an offensive coordinator. If that did happen, I think Bill would have been fired on the spot. And I think he even knew that. So a few possible kind of scenarios where we'll kind of talk through and kind of discuss. I'll just list out the ones we kind of mentioned. And then I'd say what were your initial thoughts of who you would like to see? There's Bill O'Brien, obviously, Cliff Kingsbury, Nick Caley, Zach Robinson, Chad O'Shea, Adam Gase, Charlie Weiss Jr., Mike Groh, brother of Matt Groh, Wes Welker, George Godsey, Nathaniel Hackett, Matt Patricia, or Joe Judge. I don't think either of those two would get the job if they do interview for it. And I don't think we have a single name on here. Another thing to keep in mind, the Rooney Rule now applies to both quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. So I don't think we have anyone on here that would fulfill that spot, but there could be someone there that we're not thinking of. Maybe Troy Brown they might interview just to interview someone, but
I don't think they do that to Troy Brown though, to interview him just
yeah. So I don't know. What are your initial thoughts? Who would you be interested in? Best case scenario, your second scenario, what kind of direction do you think they're going?
So I think number one just has to go with Bill O'Brien. He's had success running this offense. 2010 was one of the most efficient offenses in NFL history. And then he also did it with rookie tight ends too, pretty much leading the offense. So I think Bill O'Brien's my number one because he has success in this system. And granted, Tom Brady was the quarterback then and versus Mac Jones now. But so I'd go with Bill O'Brien, number one. Number two, I'd probably go with Zach Robinson, just because he knows the system a little bit by being a former Patriot quarterback. but also he's had success a lot. I know he's viewed highly around the NFL. Some teams I think interviewed for him last year for either head coach or offensive coordinator. So he's another one. And then Cliff Kingsbury is probably those three are probably my top three. The thing with Kingsbury is his offensive style is a little different. And I don't know if you want Mac Jones going from third different system in 3 years. So those are top three just because they have experience in this setting as offensive coordinators and had success and are viewed as having a good offensive mind. Outside of those three, which is likely it might not be one of those three, Chad O'Shea I'd go with just because he knows the system. He's coaching the system. He was offensive coordinator in Miami. And the reason why he was fired was he didn't really have his quarterbacks were Ryan Fitzpatrick and then Josh Rosen, but also his offense was too sophisticated or it wasn't simple enough, which I don't think Bill's really worried about that too much. So he's someone, Wes Welker had success as wide receiver coach, both in San Fran and now in Miami. And he's been coaching offense in 3 different systems. He also coached in Houston, I believe. So he has experience. I don't know. He doesn't have play calling experience, but he knows the Shanahan's type system. So he's another one as well. Other than that, it's really tough to really know. George Godsey is an intriguing one that you mentioned. He was a Patriots offensive assistant in 2011. He then was their tight end coach for a couple of years, then went to Houston where he was the Texans offensive coordinator under Bill O'Brien. Granted, their offenses weren't great, but again, their quarterbacks were Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett. So,
yeah. And so go ahead.
Oh, just one more person I was going to say. I don't see Nick Caley because if he was in a position to be, he would have been hired this year to be their offensive coordinator if they thought that highly of him. I don't see Adam Gase. Mike Groh is intriguing. I don't think he'll be offensive coordinator, but I could see him coming on the staff. And then Charlie Weiss Jr., I don't think he has enough experience to be offensive coordinator, but I could see them definitely bring him in to be quarterback coach and then offensive coordinator. And then possibly Brian Leftwich could be an interview type person just to fulfill the Rooney rule and maybe even quarterback coach if you need a quarterback coach. So I don't know if the team's going to hire him to be their offensive coordinator after the Bucs performance this year, but
oh yeah, I would not hire him as OC based on
I won't either, but
how much it seemed like Brady kind of hated him at the end. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think those are all good ones. When we had kind of gone over this and we had saw the different kind of names that are thrown out there. The second I saw Mike Groh, I was like, oh my God, that's going to be it. It's going to be
me too.
Like the Patriots are known for using either relatives or friends. But I think just the way that this whole year went, I don't think Kraft would even allow that to happen.
Yeah.
But I could see him coming on staff maybe, but I don't know. He's with the Giants now. He may want.
He's their wide receiver coach, I believe.
Yeah, he may want to try and rise to the ranks there. It would have to be for a promotion in order to come here. I don't think they let him go.
Yeah, the only thing I could see is like quarterback coach and then offensive coordinator, but I don't see him becoming straight offensive coordinator.
Yeah. So like you had mentioned, Bill O'Brien, obviously, I think that's the kind of the white whale for all of us that we want right now. He's safe. You know how he's going to do. He runs a pretty good offense, and as much as the people want to complain about Alabama, they lost on the last drive of 2 games. It's not like they were blown out on offense or anything like that. Yeah. He's a really good coach, really good offensive mind. And the other thing I think, even before we kind of get into the names, which I wanted to talk about too, is whatever coach you're going with, you have to try and before you even pick the coach, I think you need to really pick what kind of system you're going to go with.
Yeah.
Do you want to run more of that Erhardt system? Is it Erhardt Perkins system? Perkins Erhardt, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The Patriots of old system. Are you going to run something like that? Do you want to run more of a West Coast Shanahan style offense? Do you want to run a hybrid style, which they tried to somewhat do this year? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. And the one thing too about that Shanahan style, one of the reasons why it failed here too was that, and one of the things that I think it was Shanahan I mentioned before in an interview, is that it's one thing to actually see the plays on film and break it down. It's another thing the coach specifically everything about the play, why you're running it, not just what the play looks like, but why is it being run? When is it being run? That so the feel and the situation, you really got to know that and understand it. So you would need someone that's kind of had experience with that. So I know Bill has always been intrigued by the Shanahan style offense because it's always given them trouble, and that's why they want to implement more of it. Just because if it's worked against them, we've seen that a lot with Bill, where if something works well against him, he wants to kind of steal it and use it himself, whether it be a player or a play or something like that. Yeah. So with a few of the people out there, they do have experience with that, like Zach Robinson. I think he's the most intriguing of all of them, where he's got so much promise that what everyone was saying. But again, are you going to lose him to be a head coach in a year or two? I think that at this point, I don't think Bill can really care too much about that as long as he has the pieces in place around him. So that's why I think if Bill O'Brien comes in place, I think he might have the same sort of kind of situation where he did with Saban, where he says, I really want you for 2 years. You need to develop your replacement and you can't coach him afterwards. So I think that would be the best case scenario, where you have O'Brien here and then you have either a Zach Robinson or you have a Charlie Weiss Jr. Kind of take the spot. Chad Osei, like you mentioned, would make sense. I don't think he left on great terms. Because I think he was one of those situations where he was being passed up on titles. And ended up going with what's his name, Flores to Miami. Gase would be an interesting one, just because I think as much as everyone hates on Gase, he's a really good offensive coordinator. He's just not a good head coach.
I mean, he had a stacked offense when he was offensive coordinator, but
but he is now the offensive coordinator of Lincoln Memorial High School. So quite a fall from an NFL head coach to an offensive coordinator in high school. But I would say Bill O'Brien is my number one. Number two, I'd say Zach Robinson, and then I would say number three. Oh, that's tough. Who the hell is three? I'm gonna go with Chad O'Shea. Cliff Kingsbury, I'm leaving off the list because he runs a completely different system, like you mentioned. I know I got into it with someone on Twitter when I mentioned that he runs the air raid offense, and they say he doesn't. And you clearly do any sort of Google search, he runs the air raid offense. He's added some changes into it.
Yeah, it's a little modified from when he was at Texas Tech.
Yeah, it's a modified air raid. It's still an air raid system where everything's shotgun. You need a mobile quarterback to really run that system. And it's just not anything that Mac Jones would be able to run. So no, I don't want him. I don't want a third system. And again, if you try and have him conform to the Patriot system, how is that going to work? Where he hasn't seen that in, when was he
20 years? He was drafted 2003.
Yeah, so he hasn't seen that in 20 years. Is he going to be able to teach it and explain it? I'd rather not go that route. So knowing him. All right, we spent a lot of time on this.
Yes.
Trivia.
Yes.
I didn't see this initially. What is your?
I just added it. Since we were talking about Taekwondo and it made me intrigued, so I just looked this up while we were taping. During the Bill Belichick era, who has the most receiving yards for a rookie in the Patriots? For the Patriots?
Oh, it's gonna be that guy. It's either Chad Jackson or Mitchell or something like that. What was his name? The one that was from the Super Bowl year. He ended up blowing out his knee. I'm going to say the kid that blew out his knee.
That is a good guess, but no.
Chad Jackson.
No, Chad Jackson's not even top 10.
No? No. Terry. Oh, no, he wasn't a Bill Belichick. Rookie wide receiver?
Just rookie.
Oh, it doesn't have to be a receiver? Rob Gronkowski.
No, Gronk is number 2 with 546. Aaron Hernandez is number 1 with 563. Then Gronk number 2 with 546. But part 2 of the question is, what receiver has the most as a rookie?
Bethel Johnson.
No.
Mitchell.
No.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
What is his name?
You're making me you're making me blank too.
I think his name is Mitchell.
Malcolm Mitchell.
Malcolm Mitchell. What wide receiver? What decade am I looking in?
One of the last 2.5 under the Bill Belichick era.
I know, but am I looking at the 2000 to
2010s.
2010 or 2010
2010s.
and on?
Yeah.
Oh God, what wide receiver? It's not Edelman. This wide receiver.
Edelman is sixth.
I have no
Fifth.
idea.
Edelman's fifth.
N'Keal
Number
Harry.
one. No.
It's not him. I
N'Keal
know it's
Harry's
him.
not top
He
15.
only played like 2 games that year.
Yeah. Aaron Dobson.
Oh, Aaron Dobson.
Yeah. Aaron Dobson, number one with 519. Deion Branch, number two with 489. Then Kenbrell Tompkins, number three.
Oh, that's interesting.
Then Malcolm Mitchell, number four.
All right.
Jacoby Myers, Edelman, number five.
All right. Mailbag question from @SportsTime HQ. If Kingsbury goes to the Patriots to be OC, then Hopkins gets traded there. What better way to add to the roster than signing Lamar Jackson? Thoughts?
I think you and me are both going to be on the same page because we're both not big fans of Lamar Jackson.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't like it because I don't think he's a great quarterback. He has a great skill set, but his skill set revolves around him running first. And that's how you get hurt, like we've seen this year, where he hasn't played the last 6 games and it's looking like he's not going to be playing this week in the playoffs versus the Bengals. So for me, I'd pass on Lamar Jackson. I also don't, I know a lot of people have brought this up if they bring in Kingsbury and then if they get DeAndre Hopkins, but I feel I don't know. I don't know how I don't think I still also not really high on Hopkins just because he's getting older along with his cap hit and the amount that you're going to have to give up to get him. If you're able to get him pretty cheap and bring down that cap hit, I would want Hopkins. But I think it's going to cost too much in all 3 factors. And I don't know if he's going to be as productive as people are hoping. So that's my thoughts. I don't want Lamar Jackson unless something happens with Mac where he can't play or he doesn't want to play anymore or something like that. Not an expected retirement, but I'd pass on Lamar personally.
Yeah, I would say absolutely not. I don't want Lamar Jackson anywhere close to this team. I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. Like I said, he's only going to get worse as he's slowing down especially with this knee injury. Who knows if it's going to start being something that lingers, because it was supposed to be 3 weeks. We're looking at over 6 weeks now and probably over 7 weeks. And it just hasn't responded the way he wanted to. So what's going to happen when he gets older and has more hits? We've seen so many throws this year where he can't hit like a wide open wide receiver that's running deep. So that wouldn't work in the Kingsbury offense. I wouldn't want Lamar. Again, I also probably don't want Kingsbury, and then Hopkins as well. I'm indifferent towards him where. If you could get him for a 3 or a 4, I'd want him. I don't want to give up too much capital for him because, like you said, he's aging. He's going to be 31 next year. He's already coming off of PEDs. So what's that going to look like for next year? He's not the fastest guy to begin with. So what's going to happen when he starts slowing down? Is he going to be able to break containment, break coverage, or anything like that? And the money I'm not as concerned with because there's ways to maneuver the cap a bunch of ways. And I think his actual money and cap hit isn't as high as it is when they get traded, if he gets traded after a certain date anyway for the receiving team. So I'm not really concerned there. I wouldn't give up a first or a second on him. I would say
for me, the cap hit is more, I don't think his production is going to line up with that cap hit. So I wouldn't want it. That's why I would want it lower.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Moving on. 8 questions. Who are you rooting for in the playoffs?
I'm rooting for Brady, but I also don't want him to win the Super Bowl because that means that the framed picture Super Bowl ring thing that my father-in-law got me last year is going to be outdated because it has all 7 of his Super Bowl rings in it. So selfishly, I don't want him to win and have an 8th and that be outdated. But ever since the Bucks Patriots game last year, I've gotten closure with Brady, so I have to root for him. And then also who else? 49ers, I don't mind. Seahawks, and then Jaguars. And I guess Bengals.
I'd say this was really tough because I was looking at it, I was like, I don't really like any of these teams.
Yeah.
I'd say the Bucks I'm gonna root for again, like the Brady situation. Bengals I'm gonna root for in the AFC because I like Joe Burrow a lot.
Yeah.
49ers I want to root for to a point. I want to see them lose because I don't like Kyle Shanahan. And since Jimmy's hurt, I don't think he's gonna be playing. And he's not gonna be playing. I would want to see Jimmy win, but and cause a whole sort of situation for what they're going to do next year. They trade 3 picks for Lance, and what happens if even Purdy wins the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
What do you do with Lance at that point? So that would be a bunch of chaos. I would love to see it happen, but I'm going to say the Bucks and the Bengals. Next question. How do you think the league handled the Hamlin situation as far as the kind of the rule changes that happened with at the end of the year for the playoff seeding and that sort of thing? And where should the neutral site have been played? They announced it today that it's being played in Atlanta. I'm not a fan of that at all. Just kind of getting what are your thoughts on both situations?
I think regarding the seating specifically and the home field advantage and everything, I think they handled it as best they could. It's not a perfect situation, but if the Bills ended up winning that game, they'd have the number 1 seed and they beat them. But if they lost, then they won it. So you don't really know. So I think neutral site's the best way of going about it. So I think overall they did that as best they could. I agree with you. I don't like the fact that it's in a dome, whereas both the Bills and the Chiefs are both outdoor stadiums as well. So I think it should have been somewhere outdoors in the middle of both, so both teams travel close. So maybe Lambeau, but I don't know if that might be a disadvantage for the Chiefs because Lambeau's weather might more similarly reflect Buffalo Bills or just some team in the middle. But I think it should have been outside because A, it's the playoffs. B, both teams are not dome teams. Neither team are dome teams.
Yep, I agree completely. I think they handled the situation really as best as possible. It was the kind of the fairest of all. And then agreed. I hate the dome. I hate the warm weather. This is supposed to be AFC Championships game is supposed to be cold weather, snow, elements, and they're getting none of that. I would say Lambeau, Chicago, Pittsburgh, or even
Chicago's
Gillette.
a good one too. Pittsburgh. I think the one thing with Pittsburgh though is that it's a much further flight for the Chiefs than the Bills. But I don't know how much.
Oh, really? How much is that really? We're talking a couple hours in first class flights for these people. So
I know
it's not the end of the world. That's why I was even saying Gillette would be an interesting one too. They host it all. They have all the experience of hosting it, so they'd be easy to get it. So I'd say one of those ones would be great. So but it's sad that's not going to happen. All right. Are you looking forward to the expanded college football playoff after kind of watching that blow of last night? Not last night, Monday night.
I am, because the more teams you have in it, the less you have to worry about of people
that
bitching
situation happening.
Not even that. Just people bitching that teams got left out when they shouldn't have, like Alabama or things like that. But you also have more chances of an upset. Whereas TCU, I thought TCU should have made the playoffs because they won more games versus ranked opponents, and their only loss, I believe, was in the conference championship game. Yep. But so they deserve to be in it, and they beat an undefeated Michigan team that was ranked number 2. So I know they got absolutely destroyed in the championship game, but having more teams in the playoffs, there is more likelihood of that upset, which we see in March Madness, where it's one game, anything can happen. So it's less likely that it'll always be Georgia, Bama, or those top 2 seeds, and it brings more intrigue to the games, more competitiveness. Even the first round of games, Georgia versus Ohio State, TCU versus Michigan were 2 outstanding games. By having more teams in, more on the same level of competition, is going to make more games interesting to actually watch. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, me too. I think it's going to be really fun. We saw a whole bunch of awesome bowl games, not even just the 4 in the college football playoff, but other bowl games as well. Even the Michigan State. Yeah, not Michigan State. Missouri State? The Mike Leach one. What is that? Missouri State, right?
No, Ole Miss and wasn't on? I don't remember. Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. So I think that's the one. Whatever team Mike Leach used to coach for, that was a great ending with that, and busted up a whole bunch of people's bets too. So
Yeah.
kind of funny ending for that. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think they were some awesome games, and I think it's only gonna be that way as well. Next question. With Derek Carr posting his little goodbye message after it was announced that reported by Rappaport that the Raiders are either going to cut or trade him by 215. Where will he end up next year?
I really don't know. I don't see any team trading for him with that contract. I saw that it was reported today the Colts have no interest.
No.
So one possibility. I'll go with this. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because Brady's going to be gone.
An interesting one. I'm going to go with the Jets because they're going to want
I could see the Jets too,
a veteran quarterback, and that can maybe be a placeholder for Wilson if he gets his head ever screwed on. So I'm going to go to the Jets and say if it's not the Jets, it's going to be the Commanders because they're always searching for a quarterback. So they're kind of like the Colts where they're get one wash-up guy after another. So that's my second landing spot. Who's making the AFC NFC championship games, and who's going to go on to win the Super Bowl? I will go first since I have mine written down, and I don't think you have yours. I'm going to say it's going to be Chiefs Bengals for the AFC, and then NFC is going to be Bucks Giants, which I'm a little bit sad about that the way that this whole seeding went. I'll give a preview for one of the next few questions, but I have that the 49ers are going to face the Bucks because the Giants are going to upset the Vikings. And then because of that, the real NFC championship is really the 49ers Bucks. I think that's the biggest one. But I think the Giants are going to upset the Eagles. So it's going to be Bucks Giants, and then Bucks will be in the Super Bowl. It's going to be Bucks Chiefs for the Super Bowl, and Bucks are going to win.
Oh, wow. You changed your pick from 2 weeks ago when we talked about this.
I don't even know what I said 2 weeks ago.
I had the Bucks making it to the Super Bowl, and you were surprised you had the 49ers. But I have Chiefs Bengals as well, except I have the Chiefs winning. And then I have Bucks 49ers, even though
I have the Chiefs winning.
You have Chiefs winning it all?
No, I have Chiefs beating the Bengals.
No, so I was referring, that we have the same.
Okay.
So I have Chiefs beating Bengals, Chiefs winning, and then I have Bucks, even though it's not going to make sense when we go through our predictions in a minute. I have Bucks versus 49ers with Buccaneers winning and then Chiefs beating the Bucks.
All right. Interesting. If the Browns never trade Baker Mayfield and didn't trade for Watson, would the Browns have made the playoffs this season?
Browns ended the season at 7-9, and the Dolphins made it at 9-7.
Yes, they would have made it.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think he's as bad as a quarterback as people think he is. I think the Panthers situation kind of screwed him up. I think that coach over there kind of blows too. So, I think he's an idiot. The one that they fired in Carolina.
Matt Rule?
Yes. If you're the Bears, do you trade Justin Fields and pick a quarterback with a number overall pick, or you're sticking with Fields? This is actually a real good question by you. And this is the question I was trying to figure out. I actually asked, I don't remember who. I think it was our dad, and because he's a big Justin Fields fan, which I am not. And I would say you do it because Justin Fields has gotten hurt his last 2 years. It extends your rookie contract situation with a quarterback, but you do it to a point where you have to. The thing is, I don't know enough about these players coming in. We're going to do some draft stuff later on in the
after the season.
Months, after we kind of do some more research on them, that sort of thing. Bryce Young is slotted to be the number one quarterback taken. From what he looks, from what I've seen of him, he's a winner, but he's very small, and that would kind of scare me off a little bit of being a number one overall pick. There's that kid from Kentucky that's big and strong. It kind of looks like Josh Allen a little bit. He's an interesting one. He's only ranked like 6th, I think, of all the quarterbacks.
Some people have him number 2. Some have him number 6, like top 6. And then there's CJ Stroud from Ohio State.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I would say if you do enough research and you think you found the guy, I would, and then the way the Bears said it, they would have to be overblown with a quarterback to take one. By using it, I'd use that as leverage and try and see if you can get like a 1 and a 2, or 2 1s, or a 1 and a 3, some sort of big compensation for Fields, and pick a quarterback. So that way you kind of win both ways. That would be a really big win, I would say. So I would say yes, if you could do it.
Yeah, for me, it depends on how you view Justin Fields and how you view the other quarterbacks in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm not big on Justin Fields, and I haven't been even dating back to the draft last year. But I'm also big on. I do like Bryce Young a lot. He is a winner. He's got brass stones, to quote Psych. So since for me, granted, I haven't watched all that film. I'm not an NFL evaluator or anything, but for me, I would go with Bryce Young. And also, I feel that Fields is highly viewed around the NFL with some teams. So you could get some good compensation back for trading him. It's not like the Cardinals, which they drafted Josh Rosen, but everyone knew Josh Rosen sucked and they could only get a high second for him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something where you could get a lot for Justin Fields and pick your future QB. But if you think Fields is better than all the QBs available, then you don't even consider it.
Yep. Next question. If you can only extend one, do you want the Patriots to extend Kyle Duggar, Michael Enu, or Josh Uche?
And just for some context, all three of them were 2020 draft, and they're heading into their last year on their contract. And this is the first time they're eligible for a contract extension. So for me, I think it's not even a question. I think you have to go with Duggar just because of how much of an impact player he is on this defense. And you've seen the growth that he's had from year to year. And he can be a superstar at this league and be one of the best defensive players in the NFL. I love Michael Onwenu, but we've seen with the Patriots with Bill Belichick, he's excellent at drafting offensive linemen and guard. Mm-hmm. So as much as it would pain me to part from him, I think you have to go with Kyle Duggar.
Yep, I agree. I would say Duggar because he's got kind of the biggest bang for you. Where guard, you can not easily, but Bill's done a really good job of finding linemen. So I wouldn't overpay for that if you had to only choose one. I would say Duggar. And the thing, he still needs to get better in space. Yeah. And we even saw that there's a touchdown to Knox,
Dawson Knox,
in the end zone where he just whiffed on his kind of keeping up with him. Yeah. But I think he will get better with that over time because again he is at a disadvantage from where he's coming from in college. So and then Uche, I just wouldn't pay a pass rusher unless you're an elite pass rusher like Judon. So I would say Duggar. All right. Super wild card weekend prediction. We're just gonna go through each game, pick a winner, and then we should be wrapping this up. Seahawks at 49ers.
49ers.
Chargers at Jags.
I changed my pick. I initially went with Jaguars because Mike Williams looks like he's going to be out, but I think the Chargers are just so much more talented, even though their coach is an idiot. So I'm going to go with Chargers, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Jaguars win.
I'm saying Jaguars just because I'm putting down for Staley to somehow lose it for him because he's a moron and they're not going to go far with him ever as head coach. Dolphins at Bills. This isn't even a question.
Bills, especially since looks like Skylar Thompson's going to be the QB for the Dolphins.
Yep, they are going to it's going to be a bloodbath in Buffalo. It's going to.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills rest their starters in the first half because they're up by 5 scores.
Yep, it's going to be. I don't even. It'll be interesting to see how much they score on them and how little the Dolphins score. Yeah. Giants at Vikings.
I think I'm going with the Giants, even though I think the Vikings are more talented. But I think Dable is just an excellent head coach.
Yeah, I'm going Giants because I think Kirk Cousins is going to turn to a puddle eventually. And I'm going to say, even though this is a 1:00 game, it is a playoff game. So I feel like that's a prime time game for him. He's going to turn to a puddle. They're going to lose this game, even though the Vikings are more talented, really everywhere. Ravens at Bengals. This one.
And Lamar Jackson's not supposed to play. So Bengals without a question.
Yep, Bengals easily. They haven't been scoring with Lamar out, so I will say Bengals. And then Cowboys at Bucks. And I think we all know our answer here. Bucks. Brady has not lost to the Cowboys, I think ever. I think he's 7-0 against them. Yep. And the Cowboys have not won an away playoff game since I think it's like 1990 something, like 92 or something like that. Bucks
and Mike McCarthy's their head coach.
Yep. So he's an idiot. He doesn't win. Bucks will win. Yep. All right. That was a long pod. Thank you for keeping up with us. And thank you for listening again. Excited to, even though the season's over now for the Patriots, we are going to be coming back with episodes each week the coming weeks. Eventually, we'll take a little bit of a few breaks here and there throughout the off season to recharge, refuel. But we will kind of hit you up. Kind of really the plan. Kind of really next week will be a season recap for the Patriots. The week afterwards, probably the type of moves the Patriots should make, or maybe we went lump down with we'll see what happens, and we'll also break down the games of the weekend. So for the wildcard weekend, division weekend, conference weekend, we'll do a Super Bowl preview, that sort of thing. So got some good content coming up. Got some blogs that are in the pipeline. We're finally gonna start writing them again, and actually have some content up there for you guys. So look forward to that. Thank you again. Subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @PatsForHandleOfPod for up-to-minute updates and commentary of news of the day. We've been getting a lot of traction on there lately. Subscribe, rate, and review. Not Instagram, on your whatever podcast feed you listen to it. YouTube, subscribe there. Hit the subscribe button. Leave some comments. If any comments on the videos that we post, I'd love to have them, and look forward to talking to you guys next week.